And we're back with another episode of the Pop Culture Cosmos. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here from Pop Culture Cosmos, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, Game Source, and of course the Lakers Fast Break. We truly appreciate everyone out there listening to all of our great shows. And if you can, please give us that 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. Plus, if you could like, share, subscribe today to get the latest notifications on when we go live with the air or on the air with the latest Pop Culture Cosmos, PCC Multiverse, State of Pro Wrestling, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, great interviews, and more, all right here on the Pop Culture Cosmos channel on YouTube, or the latest shows that we drop each and every time out. If you go ahead and subscribe today on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify or whatever podcast player you choose. But it wouldn't be a Pop Culture Cosmos without my good friend. He is the mastermind, the evil mastermind behind the Happy Hoarder. Go ahead and check out what he's doing today at the Happy Hoarder right there for you on social media, and of course, happyhoardercollectibles.com. And if you do, you will see a whole ton of stuff. When you got Lord of the Rings, you've got Naruto, you've got DC, you've got Pops, you've got other figures, you've got so many great video games, you've got so many great things there. And you can also pre-order, that's right, you can pre-order some great Funko Pops and also action figures on the way for Dragon Ball Z and also as well My Hero Academia. It is a good man indeed. You got to go ahead and check him out here and there as well at the Happy Hoarder. It is Josh the Great, and Josh, a lot of stuff going on in pop culture in regards to the future of gaming, and I wanted to go ahead and make sure you put your 2 cents in because I know this may affect you as well.
Yes, yeah, we're discussing the Microsoft leaks, right? That's where we're headed with
Yes, but
this.
also iPhone 15 and maybe a little
Okay.
bit more here and there. But yeah, but especially the Xbox leaks, which I'll go to a little bit more in detail here in a sec. But how are you? How are you, my friend?
I'm good. I'm good. As you said, there's a lot of cool stuff up on the Happy Hoarder now. I'm just trying to make the website look pretty, and the pre-order section. I've been working on that for a long time. I just haven't quite finished it yet. So there'll be a lot more like cool pre-orders up there soon enough because all the stuff that's going to be available in 2024 is now available for me to order. So as soon as I can get those get those orders in, I'll put those pre-orders up and you can check out some really cool stuff, statues, action figures, video games, things like that. Really cool stuff. But yeah, www.happyhoardercollectibles.com.
Well, you know what? I need to know when you're getting back in stock Bluey's Ultimate Caravan Adventures. That's pissing me off
Ooh.
that it's not available right now on your site. It's out of stock.
I know. The Bluey stuff, I tell you, man, like you got to order that stuff while it's there because it's gone.
It's making me mad, man. It's making me mad. I need my Bluey. There you go.
Hey, you'd be
I
surprised. Like I go to the
I
mall,
am
set
not.
things up, put some Bluey on the shelf, and it's gone, man.
I've already heard news reports over the past 6 months in regards to how popular Bluey is.
The video
And
game coming out.
yes, and as someone who has two daughters that are now teenagers, but not too long ago were in that age group for Bluey, I know that you have to go ahead and get what they're liking out there, whether it was the Wiggles, whether it was, just going off on Dora the Explorer, or just some of the crazy things that they loved. Hello Kitty at that point in time. Just a
Mhm.
ton of stuff out there at that time that they were liking, that they were into, that they wanted me to go ahead and get for them So I know for a lot of parents out there, Bluey is the thing that they're going to be getting for this particular generation of children.
Yeah, okay. So you know what's weird? I was talking about this with my wife earlier today, and a lot of
Don't
people
you just love
will
the fact that you could have conversations on Bluey with your wife?
yes, yes. But we're talking about how like there will never be another era like the 90s again. And I know a lot of people will bring up all like the how politics and stuff are under the rug, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like toys and like shopping and things like that. And during the 90s, there's always like two or three hot items that kids wanted for Christmas. But
Mhm.
now there are so many different types of toys that it's really, and some of them are just like a flash in the pan, you know. So if you ordering toys is for kids is difficult, like collectibles.
And some of them, just to be honest with you, are not meant for kids.
Right, right. And like collectibles is one thing because I can order them and they have a long shelf life, right? Like people will, something can come out and 6 months later they're still looking for it. But with like toys, it once that fad is over, and sometimes those fads only last like 4 to 5 weeks, and once that's over, nobody wants those toys anymore. So if you order 20, 30 units of something and you're only able to sell 10 of them, you could be sitting on those other ones for months and months and months, possibly a year to 2 years, unless you set it down to like clearance items. So it's the world of kids toys is dangerous for sellers, but Bluey is one that has stuck around for a long time. Bluey, Coco Melon, and Paw Patrol are the three
Yeah.
that you can always rely on to be strong. The other ones
Paw
like the
Patrol was huge last year with when
mhm.
the movie came out.
Yeah, yep, and the other ones like the Gujitsus and Gabby's Dollhouse, like all those other ones, even Barbie now, like it's
Of
hit or
course.
miss. It's like some people want them, some people don't. It's not a guaranteed sell. Whereas like I go to the mall and I set out my Bluey, Coco Melon, other what was the other one I named? I can't remember, but a Paw Patrol. I set that stuff out, and it's guaranteed that I'm gonna sell it before the night's over.
Wow, that's amazing. Again, it's just following what the latest fads in children's toys and detailed on that as far as seeing what you can go ahead and get. It's just truly amazing. But if you want to go ahead and check out what Josh has, Lord of the Rings, Bluey, Barbie, so much more, My Hero Academia, just a ton of pop culture stuff, go ahead and check it out today. HappyHoarderCollectibles.com. But we do have a great show lined up for you, a lot to talk about. The first thing I guess I'm going to talk about, because I know we're going to get a deep discussion on Xbox, but before we hit our first break, I wanted to go ahead, my friend, and ask you your thoughts on the iPhone 15. I am a Samsung user, tried and true. It's not going to, I'm not going to say this kind of got me interested, piqued my interest. It did raise an eyebrow because of the recent iPhone showcase where it actually showed off the intense horsepower underneath the hood, so to speak, as far as the processing speed by playing, I'd say PS4 and also as well maybe Xbox Series S and X, which is not the current generation, it's the generation before, but playing games like Resident Evil 4, as far as the remake, the remaster that was done, and a couple other games that were shown off there that were very popular, just recent hits, like even as late as last year, seems to me like it's getting closer and closer to reality of being able to go ahead and play mobile gaming anywhere you want and play as the type of the games that you want. It's no longer just Candy Crush, Pokemon Go, and there you go. It's getting to the point where we could really start seeing some heavy duty stuff that only a Steam Deck could actually support.
Yeah, and I honestly I think it was inevitable that it was going to get there eventually. Like today, we went to the mall and we saw a guy sitting in the Chinese restaurant Payway, playing Games Pass on his phone. He had his Xbox controller synced to his phone, and he was playing Games Pass. So, just the fact that we can do that stuff is awesome. I look at the iPhone though, and yes, it's cool that people can use them to do games, and there's like Apple Arcade and things like that, but it's not, there's not enough on the iPhone that is appealing enough to not use those other services, like the whatever the PlayStation thing is going to be called, or Xbox Live. There's not enough on the iPhone to make you really want to use, the what the iPhone has to offer.
Well, the only thing I ask you on that then is that's now. But if we see these high level games, if we see these console games that are actually really, really capable of doing this at a high level, really, really capable of going and being able to function for gaming at a really high level, even if it's just a PS4 level, but that's still some serious power. I mean, that's still the PS4 and the Xbox Series S and X at the time, not the Xbox Series, but the Xbox One, I should say. Let's go ahead and clarify that. That's the Xbox One S and X, and also as well the PlayStation 4, which was the previous generation of gaming. The current generation is, of course, the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series S and X. Sorry about that. Get my Xbox mixed up sometimes. I wanted to go ahead and say that's still more powerful than the Nintendo Switch. So if you now have in the palm of your hands a phone that's more powerful than the Nintendo Switch, which both Melinda and I were, just relentlessly joking on after seeing that Mortal Kombat graphics on Mortal Kombat 1 graphics on the Nintendo Switch, it just tells me, my friend, that you will be able in the not too distant future play a ton of console level games on the iPhone 15 or the Samsung equivalent in the not too distant future, if not already.
So here's where I'm standing on that. Like they have to have the infrastructure to support that, right? So
Mhm.
Apple, you get your, your Fruit Ninja, and they have some cool RPGs. Like Fantasian was really cool, and that was made by the guy behind. I want to say it was Final Fantasy 3, but um, yes, there are a lot of cool things coming out specifically for iPhone. But if they're going to really utilize that, that system,
Okay.
sorry, if they're really going to utilize that, this all this stuff they're talking about, they're going to have to get deeply involved in developing stuff, developing things that people will actually want to use that platform to play on. Whereas, you look at it, you can Xbox and PlayStation's getting there, but Xbox already has something like that in place. So, are we going to see a day when games like Fallout, Elder Scrolls, Gran Turismo, whatever these like hot hits are coming out? Is it going to be PS5, Xbox, and iOS? Is that ever going to happen?
Well, you're going to have like Death Stranding, Director's Cut, my friend, coming to the iPhone. The Resident Evil 4 remake, like we talked about earlier. Resident Evil Village, The Division Resurgence, and they just announced the Division 3 that's coming on the way as far as in development now. But the Division Resurgence, Assassin's Creed Mirage, which you know very well, those are actually games that have already been announced coming to the iPhone 15. That's I don't know. I don't want to say they're like, the top level games because these are all games that were really big in 2021 and 2022. But my gosh, my friend, that's not far off.
Yeah, and I don't doubt that we're going to get there, but here's the thing though. I will become a believer when I see it working the way that they promise it's going to work.
Mhm. Okay.
It's yeah, I have and I've talked about this before. I'm not a huge fan of mobile games, man. Like they just have never impressed me. So I need to be impressed by this to really like look at it and be like, oh yeah, this is a really really great thing. Until then, like, what's the motivation for people to play on iOS as opposed to turning on their television at home, sitting on the couch and playing, Resident Evil or Assassin's Creed or whatever on a large screen?
Well, again, it just shows that the gap is closer than ever before. And you and I both have heard, and as I reported on the Friday show, the Nintendo Switch 2 is on the way. Their dev kit's already being shown off. There's stuff being shown off behind the scenes about the new power and how powerful it's going to be when it's announced, most likely next year for next fall, as far as Nintendo Switch 2 or Pro or whatever they're going to call it. But I really think that, when you've got a system in your hands that's going to make it, I guess, even, just right at the level of a maybe an entry, just maybe the beginning of the PlayStation 4, Xbox One stage. The what stuff that the consoles that we got in 2013 and 2014 tells me that it's just close enough now for a lot of people, for high-end gamers, maybe like yourself. Maybe it's not quite there yet, but if you're able to go ahead and get a great experience playing Death Stranding and Resident Evil 4 or Resident Evil Village, those days when we're going to be able to go ahead and get concurrent releases of, let's say, something like Starfield, which just came out, those days are coming pretty soon, and it may already be there based off the fact that Xbox Games Pass already makes it available for you to play them on a mobile platform.
That was weird. Sorry, right, yes, but that is further proving my point though. Like what's the motivation for using an iOS platform for that? Whereas you have Xbox and yeah, you could play games on the go and stuff, but like I would much rather sit down on my couch and play it on a television than play it on a phone. And plus what and I guess a big question here too is like every time people sit down to play mobile games on the phone, it sucks up the battery life really, really fast. So
That's
what
true.
are they doing to remedy that situation? There's a whole lot of things that make mobile gaming not work very well. So until I see these situations remedied, I am struggling to see like how this is going to, outperform a console.
Okay. And I'm not saying it's going to outperform a console. I don't think that outperforming a console is the goal or should be the goal. I mean, well, my gosh, again, outperforming the Nintendo Switch, but that's notwithstanding because the Nintendo Switch is, even when it came out 7 years ago, roughly, it was underpowered then compared to the PS4 and also as well the Xbox One. But
Right.
I'm not asking it to be as cutting edge as even what we see with the PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series S or X, or even be able to use where you've got the Rogue Ally, or you've got the Steam Deck being able to go ahead and do that. Those are high end powerhouses that they're supposed to play the games there that really really tax systems. If it gets anywhere near that, or if you're able to use it effectively as far as, let's say, Xbox Games Pass, like I said, if you're able to go ahead and play Starfield and it doesn't look like dirt playing it and it moves smoothly enough, that's a big step in the right direction for other people that want to go ahead and just have gaming on the go.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you. It is a major step, but they're much like Google with like the Stadia, right? There's a proving grounds for them. They have to really prove themselves before people are going to turn to their platform to play these major releases.
I hear you on that, and I think there's still a little bit of ways to go, but it is the gap, anyways, closing. It is getting closer and closer to a future where it's going to be mobile powerhouses underneath the hood for all of these phones coming out, whether it's Samsung or iPhones, because the iPhone 15 just released onto the wild. It has been a huge hit, and one of the biggest areas of improvement is the fact that it's going to be a lot better for gaming going forward. So, we want to hear your thoughts on the future of mobile gaming, and if you're excited to go ahead and play console AAA games, which you can pretty much do now on the high end iPhones like iPhone 15, iPhone 15 Pro and Max. And I believe also as well in the not too distant future for the Samsung models and other models as well. So, what is the future of mobile gaming? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. Well, my friend, there's still much more to talk about on today's program. It's Gerald Glassford along with my good friend, Mr. Josh Peterson, right here for you at the Pop Culture Cosmos. Thanks so much for watching and listening. It is truly appreciated. But, Josh, I went over this with Melinda. There was a massive, massive, massive Xbox leak, in relation to the FTC court case against Microsoft and the purchase of Microsoft, with Activision. It looks more and more like, even though they gave Xbox a hard time, the FTC lost their case. It looks like overseas they're trying to clear up all the things there. They're trying to dot the I's and cross the T's. So we're getting closer and closer, Josh, to a completion of the Blue Magic says, my goal in life is to have Gerald switch to the iPhone. Now, I'm going to do the famous quote from LA Knight. Stand with the Samsung indeed. iPhone has to become really something much better than Samsung, and right for me to go ahead and make the switch. Joe Soro on the Lakers Fast Break has his issues with the iPhone already. But I ask you this, my friend. You heard the information, the information that was leaked to the internet because it was put up unredacted to a government website, and in process got out there to the world about the future for Xbox. In many ways, a lot of game titles being released as far as what could possibly be coming in the future. Some have been confirmed, some have not been confirmed externally. A refresh of the Xbox Series S and X, more cylindrical and a little bit smaller. The more expensive version, the X, will have no optical drive and 2 TB. And that's basically what I want to get down to you as first, as far as when it comes to what we're talking about here. The Xbox Series S and X refresh and the next generation of Xbox due out sometime in 2028 or thereabouts, which was also discovered and leaked out, that will also not have an optical drive. So basically going forward, Xbox, according to these plans, which in some cases a year, 2, 3 years ago, so they may be subject to change, have no plans for an optical disk drive inside the unit. Thus, people like yourself, video game restoration, and other things, as far as people just wanting to buy physical discs, will find it a lot harder unless they provide an external option for playing Xbox games on a disc in the future. So what are your thoughts on this, my friend? Because again, for individuals, it's a larger market to buy digitally, but there's still that hard core marketplace. And I'm talking to an individual right now that's really, really, invested in physical media, that really enjoys that aspect of it, but may not get that on the Xbox much longer.
Yeah, I will not go silently into an all digital future. Let me
And you
just
let Phil
put that
Spencer
out
know that.
plain and clear for everyone to hear. The thing with Xbox, so, and let me start this off by saying, it is incredibly disappointing the way that all this stuff leaked out, because yeah, we kind of knew a lot of this already. Like, it was, there've been whispers and rumors or whatever, but like this really like removes faith in the whole process, right? Like the FTC, the American courts, like it really just makes you lose faith in their ability to protect your information.
Well, they said it was a Microsoft individual, somebody on the Microsoft side that put it up there unredacted, supposedly. But I don't think the government, the FTC, was just like so worried about oh, it's up there. All right, there you go. All
Yeah,
right,
right. But I don't know. It's
not our
just
problem.
yeah, there just seems like there's a lot of carelessness that went on here. Anyways, to answer your question about the optic drive, we were. It's clear that they were already heading in that direction, right? Like you go on, like PlayStation is the only, between the two, PlayStation is the only people that have the full game on the discs. Whereas Xbox, you have to download a good 75 to 80% of the game when you put the disc in. And
And remember,
so
10 years ago with the Xbox One, getting back to our conversation, we've spoken about the Xbox One so much on this show. The Xbox One was originally released, or originally intending to be released, as a digital only option.
right. And so like that's disappointing too. Like the days where you can play video games without the internet are it's over. Like, and I talked about this back when Assassin's Creed Valhalla came out. You could only save the game if you were connected to the internet. So if your internet went out and you had been playing for 8 hours, there's no way you're gonna be able to save your stuff. So we kind of already saw this future coming towards us, but it does. There is a market for physical games. I mean, I don't know if you would agree with me when I say that, but even if people don't, even if it's something that people can't actually like put into a console, like people will still pay money for a disc and a case and like a nice collector's edition. So does it bum me out that Xbox is trying to go all digital? Not really, because I mean the newer generation of video games, they're not as collectible, say, as the stuff that went back to um, PS2, I think is the last era of gaming that really had like has collectability and holds value to it. But looking at Xbox, you see what they want though. They want to have an app and smart TVs. They want everything to be digital, and this is part of their accessibility plan, which I think is cool. But at the same time, I remember being a kid and loving seeing like all, and it's still as an adult, like I love seeing the spines of my video games in the shelf, and like moving forward, it just people aren't going to get to experience that, which is kind of sad. But at the same time, like what is removing like the cost of physical media going to help them further their goal of making gaming accessible to everybody? And if the answer is yes, then I guess like I don't really have a choice except to move forward with it and agree with it.
But again, it does affect you. I know that the reseller market, the secondhand market, which I'm sure that Microsoft and Sony are not, and Nintendo, none of them love that market in the first place because they don't get anything from it. So don't expect them to shed a tear for individuals such as yourself or anyone else, like our good friends and our big supporters at Retro City Games here in Las Vegas. They will not shed a tear for those individuals that are reliant upon that type of business because again, they don't see any part of it, if from a
Right.
second hand. Yeah, so I think that for them is very important, and it's also very important is the fact that there's cost issues. It just always kind of bothered me that I have to pay $70 for the same game in digital form that I do in physical form. It's really unfair. And it's really
Oh,
unfair, and
absolutely.
it's never been really addressed on any type of corporate or government level why that is.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. And that was the whole thing. Like when the digital market opened, I think back in the was it the Xbox One era or Xbox 360 era, right? Like you could pay $60 for a physical copy of Gears of War. You could pay like $45 for a digital version of it, which was fine. But now you're still paying 60 to $70 for these digital copies, and it makes you wonder like what exactly are you paying for?
Now, devotion, and I want to bring up some of the comments here before we head to the break on a half-hour break. I wanted to say devotion, $70 for a game is just criminal now. I would have expected them to be cheaper by now. Devotion, if we go back to the 90s, a lot of the games were 70 and $80, if I'm not mistaken. I actually, when I was reselling them, when I was working for a company that resells, they were quite often in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, more often in the 70s and 80s, especially the Super Nintendo at that time and the Nintendo 64. They were always high priced. The thing that gets me the most, Josh, is when you ask me, like for instance, NBA 2K, which just came out recently, and I went over this back and forth with TJ Johnson on last week, or excuse me, 2 weeks ago, where we went back and forth on the validity of $70, but requiring certain microtransactions to get through the game and not making them just optional. We're talking about huge chunks of the game that you cannot progress through after you've already paid $70. You still need to go ahead and through microtransactions. Those are the biggest things, a point of contention for me. $70, I get it. It's still very expensive, but with the cost of these, making games, it's still that
It's gone
justifies.
up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's justified there. But $70 on microtransactions, that's where it gets me the most.
Yeah, so, Tears of Joy brought up a good point where he says, you're right that they were always high priced, but things like music and movies have gotten cheaper to consume than video games.
Good
And
point.
that is it. Yeah, it is a very good point. I think, we're looking at like AAA video games are the price of making them has gone up
In that
astronomically.
same court case, what was the Last of Us 2 was like $250 million in that range, I think, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, the great thing though about video games is, especially things made by Ubisoft and Square and devs like that, like a lot of the AAA titles will, with the exception of Nintendo, they actually drop, to cheaper prices within the first 3 months that they're out. So you go out and buy something on Black Friday, and you're gonna end up paying, half of what it was on release day. So yeah, I mean, and that's where like the digital thing kills me because you don't get discounts like that in a digital marketplace.
Once again, it is Josh, the great Josh Peterson, and me, Gerald Glassford. Thanks so much for watching and listening. It is the Pop Culture Cosmos. We truly appreciate it. We're streamed all around the world on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, or wherever you get your podcasts, plus also great radio stations worldwide. Go ahead and support happyhoardercollectibles.com. But I want to mention something that was brought in the chat just recently. It was said, and I'm going to bring it right here. Through the Wire said, "Is there such a thing as album art anymore?" By the way, I say yes. There wasn't for a little while, Josh, but
Mhm.
with the rise in vinyl, because there still is a
Oh,
demand and
absolutely,
actually
yeah.
a growing demand for vinyl. In fact, more so now than CDs. Recently, vinyls passed up CDs. Once again, see how the tables have turned where CDs passed up vinyl. Vinyl has now retaken the market share over CDs in sales. So album art is still to an extent there, but I get what they're saying as far as if still most of the audience is buying digital. And we're gonna tie this back into Xbox here in a second. But your thoughts on that, my friend?
Yeah, what's funny is there's a new like collectible market revolving around vinyl.
Hmm.
And it's not like you think that people would want to collect old vinyls, but they don't. They want to collect the new vinyls. Like you go to Target or
Target.
Walmart or whatever, there is no CD section at
No.
all to speak of. It's all vinyls.
My
And
daughter's bought 3 albums at Target in the past year, all
yeah,
vinyl. Yeah.
yep, yep. And so it's just funny because you used to buy CDs because you wanted to play them in the car, you wanted to listen to them while you go, but now you just stream it off your iPhone, and then you take the records home and you either just frame them or um don't open them and just put them in a box somewhere. And I know very few people that buy vinyls and actually listen to them, which is funny, right? Because it's like Pokemon cards. A lot of people buy Pokemon cards and never actually play the game. They just collect them, which everyone has their thing, and that's
Or
cool.
try
But
to resell them.
or right, right. I don't know. I don't, guilty. But it's interesting too because if you go to iTunes and you look up the album that you want, a lot of the time there's actually digital artwork that has some kind of moving element on it. So like there was one album I was looking at the other day, and it had a guy sitting in front of a campfire, and the fire was actually like waving around on the album cover, which was kind of cool.
Yeah. One of the things, though, I wanted to ask you, though, leading back into video games, was something that was also mentioned in the chat. Heavy Duty said we can stream music, but not really games. I assume the streaming market for video games is an area for growth. Cloud games in the cloud, absolutely correct. Heavy Duty, it is a market for growth, and that was one of the original points of contention in the FTC, not the FTC end of it, excuse me, but the European Commission in regards to fighting the Activision purchase by Microsoft, is the fact that they saw cloud gaming, even though it takes up what, less than 10%, probably even closer to less than 5% right now, Josh, of the gaming that's played out there. It's something that they see in the future. It's something that Microsoft sees as a big part of their future. I'll tell you why, my friend. I just got Xbox Games Pass when I got Starfield, right? So I've been playing a little bit of Starfield here and there, but I wanted to go ahead and test the waters out and see and be able to, on my Xbox Series S, how good the cloud gaming experience is. Now, I got a chance to play a couple games like Atomic Heart and the latest Serious Sam on there, even though I wish I wouldn't have played this latest Serious Sam because it unfortunately is not like the Serious Sams of old. It absolutely seriously sucks. But Atomic Heart, which had the worst prologue I've ever seen as well, that was truly boring. But I was able to clearly go and be able to actually experience it almost fluidly, almost 100% fluidly with no issues. And that was coming directly from the cloud, saving me and freeing up the space on my hard drive. So I want to hear your thoughts on this, my friend. I know you're in an area where you are not as fortunate as you have, yeah, and I've experienced with your internet, but about cloud gaming being a possibility for more people down the road.
Yeah, I love cloud gaming in theory. I love the concept of cloud gaming, but I have yet to see it executed in a way that one would call flawless. I because with the
Mine was
Xbox.
pretty good. My experience was pretty good last night. I will tell you that. It was better than playing it on a PlayStation, the previous generation, with a lot of loading times and whatnot. The loading times were much less intrusive to me last night.
Yeah, and I've played, back when the Xbox Cloud Gaming came out, I spent some time playing Forza Horizon on it, which was it was cool, but here's the thing that bothers me about this is you have to be hooked up to a strong internet signal, or you have to have, I think it was LTE active on your phone in order to
Mhm.
have like a decent gaming experience. So if you're somewhere, the whole point of cloud gaming is to be able to play on the go. And so if you're somewhere where you don't have access to internet and you're not necessarily using LTE, you're on 3G or 5G or whatever, you're not going to get a good experience with cloud gaming if you even get any experience at all. And so that's until they find a way to remedy that situation, it's still very conceptual to me.
And I don't blame you. Like for most of the world, Josh, it is conceptual. I mean, I guess I have better internet here than most here in Las Vegas, so I'm not going to, I'm not trying to brag. I'm just telling you, my experiences with it, that I have the experience I think that Xbox intends to give you with cloud gaming. I just know it's not going to be as fruitful and beneficial for 90% of the world right now at this time as what I'm experiencing.
Yeah, exactly. And so this is where, things like the Switch, even though the Switch is graphically inferior to, PlayStation and Xbox, or even things like Steam Deck or whatever the Asus one is called, is still going to be a more desirable experience in cloud gaming because you're downloading games onto a hard drive versus, streaming them from wherever from streaming them from the cloud.
Yeah. Again, it depended on your internet availability. Mine actually was pretty good, so it was a pretty good experience for me. But I realize, that most of the world has not quite up to that, caught up to that experience as of yet. So we'll wait and see on that end. But I do know as internet gets better around the world, the cloud gaming experience will become more and more prevalent, which leads us back into the Xbox issues going forward. Again, no optical drive. If it did, it probably will. They probably will have an attachment that some point in time you can get. It connects to the USB, and they'll throw that in there for 152. They did it before with HD DVD. I remember when they
Right.
had that. Yeah, so that's something that's going to be there. But that's just that step alone will severely diminish the marketplace for reselling, which I think is one of their ultimate goals.
So, yeah, so if you go into like Target or Walmart or I guess you could
Best
even say
Buy.
Best Buy, like the you'll notice that the video game section is severely diminished. Like they are ordering less and less, and it's because they are making less and less, copies of these games available. So, looking at that, having an optical disk drive attachment would be great, but we're almost at a point where like who is going to sell them? Like you talk about the resellers, who is going to sell them? And there's all these stores are going to be getting, it seems like, are going to be getting rid of these sections because nobody is buying them and they're just harder to get a hold of. So if they were to make a an optical drive that attaches to it, who's going to supply the discs?
It's a good point. If it's not feasible for these companies to go ahead and do so, that's going to be something where even a game series like limited run games, if that's the future for Nintendo, Sony, and PlayStation, limited run games who actually limitedly runs a certain amount, they're only going to put out, but they put out physical media. They're really of no use if the world goes to digital. Companies like that, secondhand sellers. A lot of people and companies are going to be affected by this. But again, when the marketplace is already 80% or whatever, really high majority is digital purchasing, it's really harder and getting harder and harder to argue a all against an all digital future. But you said you wouldn't go down without, in the night without screaming a bit.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not going to say, "Oh, yeah, I totally agree with this." But the I it doesn't sound like I'm going to have a choice if I want to keep up with modern gaming. But of course, I'm still as a someone who sells games myself, right? There's still going to be a market for me when it comes to nostalgia. I can still buy and sell old PlayStation titles, PlayStation 2 titles, and anything up to the point where they just stop making discs. There'll still be a market for that. And the demand for these, when people realize that video games are no longer going to be physical anymore, the demand for old physical games is going to go way up, much like in COVID, people like stopped and they're like, "Oh, hey, the games of my childhood are becoming harder and harder to find, so I'm going to buy all of them." And that caused the value of those games to go way up.
So you're saying I should hold on to my physical copy of for the Xbox One NBA 2K17? You really think that's going to be a lot better? It's worth $1 now.
Yeah, sports games are a whole different story. Yeah, like most of those are worth practically nothing. But you have old RPGs and even some shooters, like you can the value of those holds pretty well.
Absolutely. If you ever want to know out there the value of a game, relative value, you can go to eBay and all this stuff, but pricecharting.com is pretty much the universally thought of in place to go for values and things of that nature. So it'll be great to see exactly how this is going to shape up, whether or not there's going to be any room for physical media, or like Josh says, it could raise up the value even more for physical media, whether it's older or newer. Hopefully, it will for the Xbox series because I see all these videos, my friend, on YouTube and whatnot about collectors, and it's always Nintendo. It's always Nintendo this, Nintendo that, little bit of PlayStation here, PlayStation there. But Xbox gets very little love in regards to the collecting world because I don't know whether it's the value that they're number three in most of the generations, except for the 360 generation. But even the 360 generation gets no love. So maybe that will change people's minds on the Xbox as far as the value of their stuff going forward as well.
Yeah, I mean, anything's possible. I don't know what the most valuable Xbox game, or sorry, Xbox 360 or Xbox One game out there
Period.
is.
Xbox game, period.
Yeah, but I know. Well, I mean, things on the original console are considered nostalgic now, and people are buying them. They're just not buying
Some.
them for some. Yeah, they're just not buying them for prices over
That
$100.
Fusion Frenzy game that you got with the system ain't going so high, my friend.
Oh my gosh, but that game is amazing. I got so many hours out of that one.
I may look. Let me look up that price chart here before I speak out loud enough. But I just remember it being given away with the system at the time. So I'm like, oh, that And then of course the Halo games. Depending on the Halo games, because there's so many out there, it's understandable if that's the case. If it's not really shown its value, but my friend, overall, some great things that were shown out there. Unfortunately for Microsoft, but great for us. Before we hit the break, I do want to ask one last thing, and then we'll go into the games after the break, and then also on Netflix as well. Your thoughts, though, on the controller, the haptic controller. I mentioned it before on the Friday show. It's something that they plan to use going forward, that they will go ahead and introduce to the marketplace. It looked really interesting. It's called the Sebile right now, the Sebile new Xbox controller that could be on the way. Talking about, again, haptic control, more like the PlayStation 5 in that aspect. Your thoughts on that as far as being able to go ahead and immerse yourself even more with this type of controller?
So let me tell you right now, like I play a lot of games on the PlayStation because of the controller. Love that controller. And just the way that like they can send, vibrations to your hands at different strengths to kind of help you realize like it helps immerse you further into the game. And then even I don't know if you ever played Astro's Playroom and you have to like
Yes.
blow air into the sensor and the controller, and it just there's so many things you can do with a haptic controller. And if Xbox were to come out with that, like I would probably play a majority of games on Xbox. It's the controller is great and it allows you to do so many more things. It opens up more mechanics on the game that can be explored, and I think that every console should have a haptic controller.
Now,
They're
to
stupid
answer,
expensive though.
yes, that's true. And I'm sure when this comes out, it's going to be stupid expensive still for an extra controller like that. But
Yeah.
make sure everyone looks out for that that really wants to enhance their gaming. I will say before the break that if you have a copy of Fusion Frenzy that's kind of loose out there, already been opened and used, only 10 bucks. But if you got one brand new, my friend, sealed, $125 right there.
What?
Yep, and yes, some of them I'm sure are still out in the wild because remember they came bundled with the system and not everybody wanted to play it, so there could be some out in the wild waiting for you. Mhm. There you go.
Find your Fusion Frenzy today.
But before we head on out, my friend, I wanted to go ahead and talk about some of the games that leaked out. Some of them have already been introduced, as far as already been announced by Microsoft and already been talked about already, and some have actually even come out in the market. The memo that involving on this one, some of them were released in 21, 22. They got some memos even from earlier this year, but this one was a memo from 2020. A lot of it Bethesda-based games, things of that nature. So, what are your thoughts on a possible Fallout 3, Elder Scrolls Oblivion remake or remastered? Haven't they said remake, but it could be remaster. You never know. There could be a new Ghostwire Tokyo on the way. There could be a new Doom Year Zero, which could be a prequel to all the events of Doom. Dishonored 3, Arcane Studios doing their own other game. There's also the folks behind Elder Scrolls Online doing their own online MMO as well. What are your thoughts on all the games that were leaked out as far as the future for Microsoft?
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely, I mean, they sound cool, but I ask you this, Gerald, does anybody truly have time to play a remake of Fallout 3 or Oblivion? Would you okay, would you really? Because I remember everyone was stoked when they're like, "Oh, yeah, they're remastering Skyrim," and then they sat down like, "Oh, no, I forgot that I spent 300 hours playing this game, and I don't have time for that anymore because I have 5 children." Yeah,
do, do,
yeah,
do,
look at
do,
that.
do,
Is
do.
that still in the wrapping?
That is no, that's it.
Oh, okay. I was
Yeah,
like,
I
"Ah,
have played.
it's
I've told
pretty
you I played
shiny."
100 last week. I told you I played 130 hours of it. I on file. I've had to rebuy this game like 3 times, and I will rebuy it a fourth time for a remaster. So yes, I or remake. I don't. It will it be? I'm hoping it'll be a remaster because that game needs remastering. It doesn't need just like a little touch up here or what 2K did the other day. What they released out there to the Switch as far as whatever they did. That port for the PS4 that they ported over to the Switch on Red Dead Redemption 2. They need some real time, or at least go with the mods. There's so many mods out there on Oblivion and Fallout 3. Go with some of those and run with that because they've done a really good job out there.
Oh, yeah, they could I mean, they could remake a game at almost 0 cost to them because somebody's already done it,
Just
so
pay off some mods. There you go.
yeah, yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, obviously, like I would buy a copy of Oblivion and I'd play it, but I don't know if I'd like finish it. Like all this stuff sounds great
I told you
in
I last week
theory.
I've got to go back into the and start the main. I don't even remember where I started with the main story. I stopped with the
Yeah.
main story because I went off on a tangent for 100 hours. since. So I gotta do. Maybe I need to do that just to get back into the main storyline once again.
Yeah, here's the thing, like, people will always there will always be a market for games like this, it's Doom Year Zero, if it's a new Wolfenstein, like, whatever, there will always be a market for those games. I don't know, but Dishonored 2 didn't really do so well, so I don't know how,
Yeah,
I don't
or
know what the
also
thinking behind
Ghostwire
that is, but
Tokyo. Ghostwire
yeah,
Tokyo.
yeah,
That one was kind of puzzled me as far as why a sequel would be coming out for that.
yeah, I played a few minutes of that one. It wasn't not probably not the funnest thing I've played. Maybe I need to spend more hours in it, but,
I know people were
um
surprised that Deathloop 2 was not part of that package, that they didn't think well enough of Deathloop 2, which actually was very highly rated. I don't know how well it sold, but I thought that game, got enough sheer acclaim to warrant a sequel.
yeah, no, I mean, I didn't actually play it, so I don't know if, like, it ended in a place where a sequel was possible for it, but, you know what I do wanna address, though, before we sign off for the night? Like, this, leak that Xbox is hoping in the future to buy Nintendo.
It
What are
was,
your
yeah, that's
thoughts
we
on that?
talked about, yeah, Melinda was, like, really hard on, obviously Phil Spencer on that. I'm sure the email was tongue in cheek. I'm
Oh,
pretty sure.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Like, I don't Nintendo would never sell, and I don't think Phil thought that they ever would, but he was just using it as an example. But the internet was, like, losing their mind over it.
I thought their opinion of Baldur's Gate 3, and that they thought it was like a second run Stadia game, in these memos that was leaked out. I thought that was kind of like a shot at them, and I think they're eating a lot of crow today that they showed really I guess really no impotence, no hard drive to go ahead and get that on their platform as fast as possible for the consumers, because they were really worried about the X and S co-op having the same thing. They had to finally relent on that once they saw the millions being sold on PC, and the fact that the PlayStation 5 was going to get a 3 or 4 month head start because of what the type of things that they did. They like most of the other public out there really had no clue that Baldur's Gate 3 would be such a huge success.
Yeah, yeah, and that's unfortunate for them, but they're not gonna hit all of them, just like PlayStation doesn't have everything that Xbox has to offer. And yeah, I'm sure they looked at remember they were slow to get onto the cross-platform wagon too, and then they saw like, "Oh, hey, we're
Still,
missing out on these sales." And but granted, there are a lot more games that you can play from like PlayStation to PC to Xbox these days than there were before. So I think they're starting to see the monetary value in that, and they're like, "Oh, okay." Just like Xbox is, they're gonna make some missteps along the way, and who knows where that's gonna lead them.
well, I'm hoping it will lead to an Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion remaster. That's what I'm looking forward to if that's the case. Actually, a remake, just entire, new, just type of recreation of the Oblivion platform would be awesome for that. As I mentioned on the Friday show, and I'll keep on mentioning it, but I'll keep my fingers crossed for that one. But if you have thoughts on all the leaks that that happened to Xbox last week in regards to their future plans, we would love to hear your thoughts one way or the other. Or are you ready for an all digital future with no physical media, or very hard to find physical media? Please let us know your thoughts. Popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. Well, my friend, before we head on out, I wanted to go ahead and talk to you about something that you, as our anime expert, should be very familiar with, and that's One Piece. One Piece. I know you still were trying to go ahead and get a chance to check it out. I recently checked it out. Thought it was really good. Much. I guess I've come to grips with the fact that it is going to be much more successful than Cowboy Bebop was on Netflix. One Piece has already been renewed for season two. It seemed to have been very popular with people out there. It has done well. It's actually, I thought, a really fun watch. I do recommend it. And this leads into what could be the future of live action anime adaptations, as we've seen, of course, with The Last of Us. on HBO. How well that's done is from a video game live action adaptation standpoint. If you take it seriously, you have the right people in place. This time they had the creator heavily involved with One Piece, came off as a success. You've got Gundam next year, which you already said you were looking forward to. Is there any more animes you think would translate well to a larger audience? Because that's why One Piece is so successful. It's not just catering. It's I always say it's not just catering to the market that everybody is familiar with. It's catering to the marketplace that people that are unfamiliar with this product before are really getting into now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that Outlaw Star would make a great one because it is a very grounded series, right? And people love their science fiction. So I think if they were to do a live action Outlaw Star, I think it could be pulled off very well. And obviously, Dragon Ball is one that people have been clamoring for, and all these rumors that Disney owns some sort of live action rights to it is something that's been getting people excited for a long time. And Dragon Ball can open up an entire cinematic universe. And then I know people want like a Naruto and things like that. And it's funny because like all the good ones have already been done poorly. Whether it's like Bleach, Full Metal Alchemist, Attack on Titan, Demon Slayer could actually be a good live action series because it has it's grounded enough. There are some like more fantastical elements in it, but it's grounded enough to really bring in the narrative is grounded in reality enough to really bring fans of that, people who aren't fans of the anime, into the show itself. But I ask you, are there any that you would want to see?
Well, I mean, Cowboy Bebop was on the first and head of my list. I guess you're going to hear me say this before, and as you've heard me say this before, and I'm going to tell you again. For me, starts and has almost stopped, but starts just getting back into anime once again, finally, after so many decades, with Akira. And I know a live action adaptation of Akira has been on and off and on and off and on and off and on and off. I don't know if it's still on right now. I mean, even coming out of the strike, when we come out of the strike, whenever that happens, if it's, there's actually something definitive in place, because it seemingly, gets into production, then it gets canceled, it gets into production. I would say for me, Akira, that's where, for many, as far as classic anime starts, and that's where I think should be the ultimate in what you do. And I'm not sure if you do that in a series or if you do that in a movie format.
So let me follow that up by asking a question.
Here we go.
Blade Runner, right? Blade Runner and Blade Runner 2049, absolutely amazing films. Blade Runner 2049 was great,
You know
but
it.
the audience fell off of it, right? It didn't have the audience that it
It
wanted
was
to
a
have.
cult. It was a cult hit, cult movie over many years. But when they tried to Warner Brothers tried to capitalize on it. It's really hard. It was really hard for them to go ahead and understand its audience, how much nostalgia. The nostalgia
Right.
plays is always a question on exactly whether or not you should do or not. I mean, like you said, 2049 is a fantastic film, but
Mhm.
it's might not it only reach a certain amount of audience. So I it's just there's a large audience out there that may not understand what it is all about, or may not get into it. They may not see it. They may see it as slow, or what they may see it the way in many ways that Ridley Scott saw it, as far as that's concerned. What he's
Right.
complained about over the years, which he shouldn't, because it's really well done.
Yeah, it's amazing. But here's the thing though, like a lot of people that watched it just didn't get it. And that's where I ask you with Akira. Akira is an incredibly complex film. It would look beautiful, and I would love to see a live action version of it. I don't think I'd want to see it in a streaming format. I'd want to see it in like a 2.5 hour film.
Okay,
But
Christopher
do you
Nolan.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. But do you think that people would get it today? Do you think there's an attention span still lingering out there that's long enough for people to really sit down and digest this film.
That's the problem. I think the answer would be similar to what you saw with Blade Runner 2049. Now, mind you, Blade Runner 2049, however we've said about it, has earned enough praise over the years to warrant an Amazon series coming down the line.
Yeah.
So
Right.
it hasn't
Right.
done it didn't do well enough for a blockbuster hit, but it did well enough to to continue the series going forward. Maybe this however way it's done could do the same thing. It could continue the fascination, or at least bring back to life to people that are unfamiliar with this product, or unfamiliar with anime, or unfamiliar with Akira, a new light into taking a look at it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and that's also that's also very possible. I'm not saying that it shouldn't be done. I would love to see an Akira because that's the one I always tell people. Like, you need to watch Akira, you need to watch Evangelion. Like, those are the two old school animes that really challenge your brain. And if you want to be an anime fan, like, this is where you got to start. But I think that, I mean, both of those properties too. They're just so complex that they would have a hard time delivering to a modern audience. In a way that's understandable to them.
I can't say I disagree with you on that because, again, when you're dealing with nostalgia plays, like you said, how much will they get? How much will they appreciate it? How well will it be translated to a modern audience is always the key. E- Even though Hollywood continuously goes back and back and back to the nostalgia plays to try and reap money from it, it doesn't, as we see, always work out.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I hope that we will get to a place where people are craving like more intellectual films, outside the explosions of a Marvel or DC or the singing of a Disney movie, but we're just not the market's not there right now. I hope that it will be one day, but I just don't feel like this is the right time to release a live action Akira Evangelion or whatever. Um, I think that Dragon Ball would do very well in the modern landscape, and Gundam really scares me because Gundam has a lot of like deep philosophical, backstories also. So that one is worrisome. One Piece does so well because it's very simple, and I think that that's one thing that's really helping them out.
Well, tell you what, though, great to have you here, my friend. Always talking some great pop culture. So, if you out there want to talk pop culture with us, or if you have an anime that you would love to see become a live action adaptation, we'd love to hear why. Please let us know your thoughts. Popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. Well, my friend, it's been a great episode. I cannot thank you enough, as always, for stopping by. Any last thoughts on the Happy Hoarder before we head on out?
So I'm actually getting these. They're called the Lightning Collection Remastered, and it's going to have a remastered version of the Black Rangers, the first one, and it's supposed to be highly collectible. And I'm gonna have them up on my website next week, so check back maybe on Friday, and you'll be able to hopefully get your hands on one. But yeah, just keep supporting, keep shopping. We're gonna have some new Pokemon cards up from the what do you call it, the 151 collection. So be on the lookout for those.
So, for Josh Peterson, this is Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day in paradise right here in the Pop Culture Cosmos. We thank you for listening. And here's hoping you have yourself a great